I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Alex Russell. I work for New South Wales Department of Primary Industries based in Dubbo. And with my colleague Ashley White, who's here in the audience, I lead the sheep extension team of New South Wales DPI. Just in terms of the logistics, you've all come through the clearly marked emergency exits that surround the room, and the toilets are in the foyer at the end of the building. But what I'd really like to do is welcome you all today to what I think is going to be a really fascinating event. And more importantly, I hope it's going to be a really useful and helpful event for yourselves as you think through the issues of and deal with the issues and complexity of mixed farming. Today's a collaboration of Sheep Connect New South Wales and the E.H. Graham Centre. Sheep Connect New South Wales is a project that is jointly funded and run by Australian Wool Innovation and New South Wales DPI, and it's an information network for the sheep industry. The purpose of Sheep Connect New South Wales is to connect people with information and ideas, with expertise and with each other, and I would really encourage you to, if you haven't already, join the network, and you will see Sheep Connect New South Wales bags around the room with membership forms in them. The E.H. Graham Centre is an alliance between New South Wales DPI and Charles Sturt University that was established in 2005. It was established to consolidate agricultural research, education and training here at Wagga, and has a regional focus in the work that it does. And I think today is an excellent illustration of the kind of collaboration that can flow from an alliance like that. I'd like to also at this point thank the sponsors of today's event, because there are several. The Department of Primary Industries, Australian Wool Innovation, the E.H. Graham Centre, Meat and Livestock Australia, Evercrop, and of course Sheep Connect New South Wales. And I've just seen Ian Evans from Australian Wool Innovation walking into the room, and I'm going to put him on the spot and ask if he'd like to step forward and just say a couple of quick words on behalf of Australian Wool Innovation before we start the day. Yep.
Good morning. Thanks very much, Alex. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Wagga's Crops, Rumps and Woolly Jumpers. AWI is pleased to support extension networks such as Sheep Connect New South Wales, which we do in each of the other states, to the tune of about $1.5 million per year. Extension networks provide a very important glue to link the efforts of the researchers to you, the producers, the users of the information. And we understand, as well as anyone, that government is finding it increasingly difficult to find the funding to support this type of activity, and it's time for industry to step up, and we certainly hope to continue to do that in the most effective and efficient way possible. So thanks very much, Alex, for your kind introduction. To everyone, all the best for the day. I hope you find it enjoyable and interesting. I know I'm certainly expecting it to be, and look forward to meeting up with a good few of you and talking to you during the day. So enjoy the day, and please participate as much as possible. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ian. I think as the day goes on, you're going to see that whilst we're here to talk about the complexity of mixed farming, there's a certain amount of complexity in running an event like this. And I'd like to now call on Jeff Casburn, who's the Sheep and Wool Officer working for New South Wales DPI here in Wagga, to give you a short explanation of the thinking behind the event and some of the things that will happen today and how we came to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I must say that it is a little bit daunting with all these cameras and lights around the room. I'm not used to such publication or publicity. Look, I did write some words down that I wanted to say today, but I thought we're all here today and we're going to we want participation. And so I want people to have the courage to ask questions, to make comments. What we've got today is we've got a series of 6 short film clips on specially selected producers from around the region. The concept of today's forum came about by a discussion between Helen Burns, Shelley Anderson, so Helen Burns from the EA Graham Centre, Tony Nugent from the EA Graham Centre, myself from DPI and Shelley Anderson from Sheep Connect. We saw the need in the mixed farming zone of southern New South Wales to have a forum where we can get producers together to share experiences. Often what we find is forums across the country have people up on stage presenting research findings, often on specific aspects of farming. And often the feedback that we get from people in the audience is that there's often not enough time for discussion. There's not enough time for sharing expertise from the people that are actually sitting in the hall or in the room on the floor. So the forum today is about basically sharing information. Now, the title of the forum, Crops, Rumps and Woolly Jumpers, working together, I mean, what's in a name? Well, firstly, in the name, what we wanted to have is that it's inclusive. It is about cropping. It is about running cattle, and it is about running sheep. Some people will have all cropping. Some people will have all sheep. Some people will do a mixture of all three up there. There is no right or wrong way of farming in this region. They're all very valid. The second part to that title is working together. And that's what we're doing here today. These guys up on stage here have the courage to share their life experiences, their farming experiences. And what we're going to see today is a visual picture of their farms. They're going to let us into their decision-making processes. And these stories are gold. These stories are uncommon in agriculture today. So today is innovative in that regards. So the first half of the day, we'll hear the stories and we'll allocate approximately half an hour to each story. There'll be approximately 5 or 7 minutes of filming, about 20 minutes of discussion, and then a short 5-minute buzz session where you guys round the table will do your personal sort of reflection on what's that session has been about. After lunch, we're lucky enough to have some of the best farming economists in Australia working with us to develop some of these ideas about financial decision making. It's going to be an interactive session. There's going to be a game that we're going to play on risk. There's a case study, and there's also some general information about what's happening across the industry. We're also today, we've got a group of producers from the Central West at the Condo Research Station that are participating via Skype or sort of like a live streaming, and hopefully we will get involvement from those guys through questions. I'm not sure if... Oh, there they are there. Can you guys hear us? Obviously not. Can you wave?
Yes, thanks, Jeff. Yep.
No, that's good. Oh, I've just lost my train of thought now. We're also... it's actually live streamed on the web. What we wanted to do today is that... I mean, it's great for people that can come along to the forum, but we understand that everyone's very busy. And we also understand that what we're discussing today is relevant to producers across Australia. We also know that in agriculture it's very hard to get the young generation getting involved in agriculture through agriculture in high schools and through universities. So that we also from today are producing an audio-visual package of the actual event today. As you can see, it's being filmed and that's going to be recorded. We have the short 5 or so minute film clips of the producers. We actually have the longer cut versions. You can imagine that we actually spent half a day on each of these producers' places, and so we've got quite a bit of footage and audio which gives a little bit more in-depth discussion about their systems. And so we also want to provide that for students nationally so that these stories can be told in high schools and at universities as case studies. So I'm hoping that today that there's a few places around Australia that are actually accessing today's forum via the web, and that the package that we're going to put together through the wonderful efforts of the students and lecturers at the CSU. I mean, what we see today in terms of the cameras, this live link to Condo, the actual film clips that you're about to see would not have been possible without the generous support of the CSU. And when I said working together, that means everyone. I mean, in the room here we've got producers, but we've also got a lot of industry bodies, from banks and from accountants, from researchers to advisory people. And we've also got the CSU guys that are contributing with this filming. But it's a real educational opportunity for those guys as well. So we're trying to integrate it as best we can. So on that note, I just encourage everyone to participate and actually work together to make today a success.
Thanks very much, Jeff. So I think it's probably time we got into it. So at this point, what I'd like to do is introduce Catriona Nichols from Hot Tin Roof Communications, who is also incidentally the coordinator of Sheep Connect Tasmania. And Kat is going to facilitate the rest of the morning. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Kat and talk to you all after lunch. Thanks, Kat.
Thanks, Alex. I think really facilitation in today's situation just means I'm here for crowd control. So there's a few dodgy characters that I already know out in the crowd, but I'm hoping you'll all work with me. One of the things that Jeff has said this morning, and Alex has reiterated, as has Ian, is this today is about participation. You have a really unique opportunity here today to throw as many questions as you like at our panel. And if Jeff felt it was daunting for him to stand up here, you have no idea how daunting it has been for our panel of producers, not only to be sitting up here in front of you, but to be up there in the lights, on film, sharing their stories. So I really encourage you to make the most of that today. So without further ado, what I want to do, instead of me introducing them one by one, I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves through a short video so that we'll set the scene for today, and then we're going to find out a bit more about you.
My main role these days is working with growth farms. I guess the majority of our farms tend to be in medium to high rainfall areas. So what do we look for when we go looking for a farm for a client? We look at some of the key issues of getting the scale right. So we want to have a viable economic unit. And that's sort of maybe 20,000 DSCs of sheep, maybe 2,000 to 3,000, 4,000 hectares of crop. Most of our investors are around for the long term, so they want to know what the business is going to perform long term, but they want to know the upside and the downside. And all those decisions about where we put our working capital on a farm are really important.
We're based in the Temora area. It's generally a bit over that 500 mil average, and it's generally scattered over all the months of the year. We're running around that 4,800 hectares. We're cropping the majority of it. The efficiencies we see are better in that area, and the problem we find is time management.
Well, I guess we farm in the Lockhart district, generally on the western side of town. My land comprises of 3 blocks. The home block's called Valera, where we are today, and I've got another block, 1,200 acres on the Urana Plain, and another 600 acres back at the family traditional farm back towards Lockhart. At the moment we've shifted back to about a 50-50 in land use between livestock, which is only sheep, no cattle.
So about 8,000 acres, of which is about 6,000 arable. So it's 5,000 acres of crop, and there's about 5,000 head of sheep. Barham Edmonds is a fairly dry area. It's only got about 430 mil average. The soils range from red earths to grey cracking clays, and in the north are more the self-mulching type soils. So in the cropping program, my main grains are wheat and canola, and I have been just rotating those the infinitum, and I've actually got a very small pasture area where I've been grazing the stock on over the winter.
Okay, our farm is 4,100 acres northeast of Culcairn in the southern Riverina. We are a 600 millimetre rainfall zone, mostly red gravelly soils, a lot of granite ridges with granite boulders, so a quarter of the farm's non-arable because it's either hill country or creek country. Currently we crop 75% of our country in a continuous cropping rotation of growing canola, wheat, lupins and barley. We run a self-replacing shorthorn beef herd.
Victoria Geddes, my husband and I, Tony, farm about 1,900 hectares, 15 kilometres north of Holbrook, east of the Hume Highway. The farm, well, traditionally 700 mil rainfall. In the last 3 years it's been closer to 1,000 mils. Loamy soils, we do have trouble with aluminium acidity and aluminium at depth. I suppose classic mixed farming enterprise. We predominantly sheep, and that was a tactical decision that we made, but we crop and we trade cattle, and the mix is set up to minimise our seasonal and production risk. Currently we crop about 500 hectares, currently run about 14,000 sheep and trade anywhere between 0 to 1,000 cattle.
Shot of what you will see today, and as you can see we've got 6 producers with very different farming systems, but I think you'll be surprised at the themes that run through today for these producers and the similarities between their systems as well as the differences. I think before we go any further, there's another innovative technology I don't know how many of you have used before, but today, throughout the sessions today, we'll be collecting information about you and from you, about your own enterprises, about the businesses that you work in and your interests and your evaluation of today. So each and every one of you has what is called a clicker. It's a very technological term. A clicker on your table. I'd encourage you to pick those up now. We're going to practice using these while we learn a bit more about you. They're very simple. You have 12 buttons on your clicker. Don't worry too much about the numbers and letters. We're going to have a practice session now. Shelley's going to run us through that. All you need to do is when the session opens, so we'll use this one as a test question. It's quite a test, isn't it, to know which is the right answer. So what you need to do is click the appropriate button. Now, if you make a mistake, which is quite easy for this one, if you make a mistake, it will record the last button that you press. It will only record one answer, and that will be the last button. Now, Shelley will give us a countdown of 10 seconds to answer the question, so you have to be quite on the ball. And then the session will close, and she'll reveal a graph of what we've got. So let's go. Can you all please answer this question by clicking A, B, or C on your clickers? Oh, you've got 843 seconds, in fact. So I think you probably don't need 645 more seconds to answer that, Shelley. If we can close that session, and you can see in the top right, it will go from open to closed. Oh. I'm not sure whether that means we have a few weathers in the room today or not. Probably I'm just not going to go there. But most of you seem to have the hang of it. All right, Shelley, let's move to the next question. Please indicate what your main role is in relation to attending this forum. Why have you come today? Just one answer, A, B, C, D or E. Okay, we're going to close that session now. I think you probably should have had plenty of time to answer that. God, I'm terrified a bomb's going to go off every time I say that. Okay, please nominate, this is a tricky one, please nominate the town closest to where you live. Oh, we're getting into the swing of things now. I know the people in Condo can't participate in this section, but it's still interesting for everyone to see where we're from. What mix best describes your situation? Now, I guess for those of you who aren't producers, you may either choose not to answer this, or if you're advisors, then answer this in terms of where you provide that advice. What industry or what enterprises are you most involved in? Okay, can we just hold that there for just a sec, Shelley? There you go. This is going to be interesting, I think, in terms of the producers and the videos that you'll see today, in terms of the mix that we have up here on the stage. And yeah, it's an interesting reflection, I think. Okay, next one. What mix best describes your enterprise ratio? So within the mix that you've just indicated, what's the emphasis within those sectors? That's interesting in itself, I think, and I guess that's something that would potentially have been changing. So I think that's what we're going to look at with the next few questions. How does that mix change? What have you observed over the past 5 years in this area, whether you're a producer or an advisor, in terms of that enterprise mix? The difference between C and D, if you think there's been no change at all, that's obviously C. If there have been changes but there's no consistent trend, then you would answer D. Yeah, and that'll be interesting in terms of whether that's reflected in our stories today. So only producers answering here, so that's about 34% of you, I think. Over the past 5 years, what have you moved towards more? Theoretically, this should be the same type of answer. Which it's not, so that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, nearly there. What issue do you believe most influences your wealth creation? Shelley, is that the same as your profitability, gross margins? Yep. So which one most influences? And you can't write your wife. That's not an option. I can say that because I'm a woman. Okay, that's interesting. And that will be borne out a bit in our stories today. Okay, what is the main thing, one answer only, that you hope to gain out of coming along today? No results, Shell. Okay. All right, thank you very much. You all seem to have a good handle on your clickers. We will be using those at the end of this session before lunch, just to see for us to evaluate how the session has gone. The other way that we'll be doing that, obviously through the question and answers, that will give us an indication of how much you're enjoying this session. But also, on your tables, you have a range of sheets that it would be great for you to fill in. So how this next session is going to work up until morning tea, we have 3 producer stories to tell. We'll tell them one at a time, as Jeff said. Then we're going to have an opportunity for discussion. I'll come down with my mic, and I think Tony or Jeff will have another roving mic. Jeff, because he doesn't like the limelight, but he's hanging onto that mic. And we'd really like to get some questions from you. We're only going to have about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the session for that. Then we're going to stop, and you'll have a discussion with your own table. I want you to use the paper in that time to write down the key ideas that you've got from each of the stories, the questions that it raises for you in your business or in the businesses that you work with, and just a general discussion between yourselves during that time. Then we'll move on to the next producer story.